Welcome to Funding Master. At Funding Master we regularly discuss grants funding with SMEs. In this video we would like to explain how SME grant funding works, and how to avoid the most common mistakes when looking for grants, if you are an SME. We will discuss how the SME grant system is set up, how to use it properly, and how to avoid the most common mistakes.
Let us start with why do governments provide grants for small to medium-sized enterprises? Governments want to promote innovation in their society and economy. Creativity, developing something completely new, and innovation, a step improvement in an existing thing, are key to creating economic value and societal benefit. Innovation can help solve major societal and industrial challenges. So, governments want SMEs to engage in creativity and innovation. To facilitate this, most developed countries have developed ecosystems to enable innovation, which includes information, innovation and enterprise centers, and grants. So, SMEs need to understand that this funding is not to promote SMEs, but rather, the innovation by SMEs. It is not core funding or a replacement for equity. It is funding to develop, realize and scale innovations. It is funding to pilot new products, services or initiatives, not funding for existing products or services. The innovation system. Most governments have both an incubation system for startup and early-stage ventures, and a separate funding system aimed at established SMEs to engage in innovation. The incubation system involves innovation centers, usually connected to a third-level institution. There is commonly a structured program with an entry level to assess new concepts, which can graduate into more advanced programs, to develop the idea to being market-ready and then scale. Governments also have funding structures aimed at existing SME. These regularly have innovation grants but also some engagement with a third-level institution. This spin in innovation has proven very successful in commercializing innovation. The stage of innovation is assessed according to the TRL scale, standing for Technology Readiness Level. The TRL scale was developed by NASA originally, but we will use slightly amended EU definitions. The TRL scale goes from 1 to 9 as outlined. Another way to understand this is by comparing TRLs to the types of funding. The image shows how the three categories overlay the TRL scale. So, feasibility study funding is TRL 3 to 4. Funding to prove if a concept works and creation of a prototype. Industrial research projects take the prototype and brings it to full development and is TRL 5 to 6. An experimental development project brings the finished innovation and helps bring it to market and scale and is TRL 7 to 9. Usually, the percentage of project costs covered by grants reduces the nearer you get to market. So, you might get 75 to 80% funding for a feasibility project, 60 to 70% for an industrial design project, and 40 to 50% for experimental development projects. Another aspect of SME funding is collaboration with partners. Usually, these projects need academics or scientists from third-level bodies to develop and test prototypes. You may also have a larger company involved with an eye to market and scalability. In EU funding calls, the percentage of funding is measured against the whole project. However, in some national calls, different size partners get a sliding scale of funding depending on size. So academic institutions would get 100%. Micro-enterprises might get, say, 75% of their costs covered. SMEs would get, say, 65% of their costs covered. And a larger company might only get 45 to 55% of their costs covered. So, it is very important to read the fine details of a funding call. Understand what stage of development is being funded, and the levels of funding being offered. How should this fit into an SME's strategy? Grant funding should fit into your overall strategic plan. Let us remember a few things. Developing a successful grant application takes considerable time. You can use support from grant writing consultants, such as Funding Master. But it is a labor-intensive process. The time you spend on developing a grant application is taking time from another business activity. That is not to say you should not make grant applications. But you should do it for the right reasons. Never chase funding, only apply for grants for things you were already planning to do. At Funding Master we call this taking a strategic approach. Lessons learned from past experience. So, If you are an SME and thinking about making grant applications, then here are a few tips to help your thinking. Grants are open, competitive processes. Even if you develop a really solid application, there are no guarantees. There are many variables such as the amount of grant available, the number of grants being offered, who is assessing the applications, the criteria for assessors, and the level of competition. In reality, if you make an application for a grant call with very strong competition and a limited number of grants on offer, you may not be successful, even though the same applications may be successful on a different day. Learn and try again. At Funding Master, we believe that a good project should be able to access funding from a number of sources. Even if you are declined for a grant, you should look to improve and apply again. You should listen to the assessor's comments, improve any identified weaknesses, and either reapply next time or apply for another suitable grant. Do not take these things personally. Build your partnership first. Building a strong and lasting partnership is very important. Building your partnership and developing your project before the grant call is made is very important. Not only do you get more assessor's marks for having a strong partnership, but it usually results in a more successful outcome. Remember, you have to work with these people for some time, so make sure you like and can work with your partners in advance. Make sure your innovative project is relevant. Like passing any exam, read the questions carefully. In this case, read the detailed call information. Make sure you tick every box of key questions and priorities. Find out who you are competing against and possibly build a collaboration with them, making for a stronger application. Finance or co-funding. You must be able to prove that the co-funding exists. If you do not have the co-funding in place, then don't make the application. Also, understand whether co-funding applies to the project or to partners. Most EU funding applies co-funding to the entire project, and partners can share the co-funding between themselves. Most national grants require different levels of co-funding from different partners. You need to understand this clearly in advance and plan around it. Don't chase funding. Just because there is an open call does not mean you should apply. Grant applications thrown together quickly tend to be of poor quality and achieve poor outcomes. Always remember, you are competing against projects that have spent many months preparing their applications. If you really want to win, then take your time, build your partnership and project, and apply when ready. Only apply for projects that are strategically important to your strategic plan and business plan.
Funding Master works with clients to develop, write and submit funding applications. You can find out more about us at our website www.fundingmaster.eu. You can follow us on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram or Twitter. Please contact us if you have any questions relating to our work or this video. Thank you for taking the time to view this video.